Hey, dudes and dudettes. It's me, your Uncle Herbie, and this is another edition of Wisdom After the Fall. Today, we're going to cover a subject that is raw and real to me. And in my experience, at least for people my age, and I'm going to call it our age for this video because I think right at this moment, anybody from generation younger than X is going to turn me right off because this is about when your adult children stop talking to you. You know, the ones that have for whatever reason, just decided that they have something they're angry about, or you have something you're angry about, or you both have something you're angry about, and there's a million different issues that it could be, and what happens. And the reason that I'm going to talk about this today is that I have a lot of practical experience with this. You know, you would think that just going to prison alone would be enough to estrange me from my four children. Now, I have two sons and I have two daughters. And I am still estranged from one daughter that happened subsequent to prison that has nothing to do with it. And you would think that prison, and of course, by the way, if those of you who are completely new to me and don't understand the whole prison thing, go back to the first two videos of Wisdom After the Fall, and I both disclose what I did and take responsibility for it, of course, and then I talk about why I did it, but not as an excuse, but again, just to sort of share commonality because, well, we all live, as Thoreau said, all men and women live lives of quiet desperation. So anyway, I'm not saying that I actually am actually quite optimistic and happy sort of guy, but it is what it is. Anyway, so I have four children, and I was estranged for a period of time through the prison term from all of them. And then after prison, I was estranged from my youngest daughter, and then she and I reconciled, and then I became estranged from my oldest daughter. Now, I'm going to share the circumstances of all of them and where they are and what's truly going on. And I'm doing this um, because I have no idea why you're estranged from your child. So I'm going to share all my complications from before prison and all the things I've done. And I'm going to come clean because I have the unique advantage of being so dirtied up because of my own behavior. There's not anything else that could possibly come out about me that's going to make me feel any more embarrassed than I've already felt. So, you know, like it's kind of like that movie, and I've used this analogy before, this allegory, analogy, whatever it is before. But if you've ever seen the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral, when Andy McDowell comes up to the door of the house and Hugh Grant is inside and she's absolutely drenched and it's the big finale, and I hope I'm not ruining it for anybody. It's a great movie. It's a big rewatch, for me anyway. And he invites her to come inside and she says, you know, I'm already soaking wet. She says something to the effect of, I'm so wet I can't get any wetter. And that's kind of how my reputation is. My reputation is so bad, it can't get any worse. So disclosing other embarrassing things that I've done is kind of my weird backway path to redemption. The whole point and the whole reason I'm doing this channel, besides supplementing my Social Security if it ever becomes monetized, which would be great. But besides that, I don't have any illusions of grandeur. I don't think I'm the next Joe Rogan. I'd be thrilled if, you know, like I passed out some good advice in life and passed on some wisdom because good decisions come from experience, but experience comes from bad decisions. And I have made a bushelful of bad decisions, but somehow was self-aware enough to come out the other side with, I think, a little wisdom intact. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. And you can take it or leave it. And I'm sharing it so that if, in case any of this touches upon anything that you've experienced, think of this as kind of if you've ever been to a 12-step meeting. Now, I'm not an alcoholic and I've never been a drug addict, and I neither drink nor smoke or anything like that. But I've been to these meetings as a relative of someone that was involved, and I came away, and I went to about a year's worth of them, and I came away with the feeling that the value of these meetings is when you hear everybody else's story, yours doesn't seem so bad. So I'm going to tell you my horrible story so yours doesn't seem so bad, and maybe help you find a path to reconcile, hopefully, with your estranged family member, or at least deal with it in your life in some healthy way that lets you move on. Because too many of us, and God, I've known a lot of my fellow boomers slash, you know, those of us who have gray hair. I mean, I have nothing but gray hair pretty much, but those of us with gray hair somewhere, unless you're really incredibly lucky. Just as a side note, guys, I'm speaking only to the men watching this now, don't dye your hair. Don't dye your hair at our age. I'm just saying, it looks just, women, different story. They're much more fastidious about it somehow. Their roots don't grow out. I don't know. It doesn't look as bad. But men, baby, it just looks, you know, what I'm talking about. Just saying. Like, time to get over vanity at our age. Okay, so let's talk about what went on and how I got estranged and so on and so forth. So, years before, and I got divorced from my second wife, Terry, in 2004. Terry was the perfect woman for me, and I threw it away. And I threw it away through my own behavior. You know, my first divorce was, I got, and again, you'll hear my whole life story if you go back to the first two videos, and I don't want to belabor it, and I want to also preface for those of you watching for the first time, look, I don't think I'm a victim. You know, what happened to me, I did to myself. I just want to make that very, 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 very clear. Okay. I share this stuff with no attempt at sympathy, more like, oh, I've had something like that happen to me. And so maybe what this guy is sharing, I can place into my own life, because if that piece of crap can pull out of it, I certainly can too. That's kind of the value of what I hope you're going to get out of this. Oh, and I don't see myself as a piece of crap. I'm not that hard on myself. I see myself as deeply, deeply flawed and a dented can trying to bang them out. That's about it. Okay, so here we go. So my first marriage, I was very, very young, and I got married, and she got pregnant right away, and the whole 9 yards, and we had nothing in common. But more than that, she was a drug addict, and I was unaware of it. I just didn't see the signs. I didn't know the clues. She was a hidden drug addict, and one thing led to another, and she ran away on my birthday. When our children were 1 and 3 respectively. So I ended up with full custody of my children. I was a single parent from 1981 until 1989, when I married my second wife, Terry, who was the perfect woman for me. You know, the first time I thought lust was love, and the second time I married my best friend. And Terry was Iowa. That's the best way I can describe her. She is Iowa. She's alive and well, and like fine wine, getting more beautiful with age, which breaks my heart, because we're still friendly. Children, grandchildren, all those things. And in fact, she is currently betrothed to be married to. I usually say married to because they live together, and they may or may not get married. Who knows? They're adults. They're not going to have children. But I fixed them up. So that shows you how good my relationship has always been with Terry. But I feel enormous guilt over it, and I feel enormous loss over it, and it always makes me maudlin and when I think about it. So I try very hard not to think about it. And it was all my fault. And I'll make a long story short, philandering. Okay, that's it. I could get into all the background reasons why, but let's not waste time with my sad story and justifying any of my behavior. It was just repulsive. I did what I did, and I reaped the consequences. And in 2004, Terry and I were divorced, but we had separated in 2000 or 2001. But we were weirdly we had a very successful divorce. Okay, one was, in fact, the divorce lawyer said, as I sobbed signing the divorce papers, by the way, and here's how I handled my divorce. At the time, I was quite affluent and doing quite well, and we had substantial assets together. This is way before I did the stupidity that I did. We divorced in 2004, but the process began in 2003 and 2002, and what I did didn't happen until 2008 and later. So this is way before. So we had fairly substantial assets, and I didn't want Terry to think I was hiding anything, because I knew that girlfriends always tell other girlfriends in a divorce that the husband's hiding something. So long story short, I let Terry pick an auditor, and I allowed myself to be audited to make sure that she knew I wasn't hiding any assets. And then we divided them up 50-50 down the middle. And then I paid her alimony and child support without any argument, but we had joint custody, although I did pay her alimony and child support so she could continue to remain a stay-at-home mom as she had been before, which was the best thing for our children, I believe then, and I still believe now. And I had in those days the ability for that to happen. And because of that, and because I didn't try to make it her fault, we ended up with the friendliest divorce ever, to the point, and we used the same divorce attorney. I didn't retain my own counsel. We selected an attorney through friends, a female attorney who was excellent. And she even said, as I signed the paper, she wished she could put Terry and I up on a billboard as how to handle divorce. It was Now I'm starting to feel that feeling I always get when I talk about this in my chest, so I'm going to move on. But that was how Terry and I got divorced. And as a result of that, my youngest daughter, Chloe, I just broke her heart. I might tear up on this. Okay, I'm going to do the best I can. But of my four children, um, from oldest to youngest, my youngest daughter, Chloe, is my favorite. Now, some parents will never admit that they have a favorite, but I have a favorite. And my kids all know that I have a favorite. And the way that I've explained it to them is I love you all the same, and I'd take a bullet for any of you, but there's just something about Chloe. I don't know what else to tell you. I can't explain it, but she's daddy's little girl. Oh, I broke her heart. Okay. So the result of all this, I'm not going to go into the details at all because as you can see, I can't handle it. But the bottom line is I broke Chloe's heart and it did a lot of damage to her. And if I'm going to put a link into the video description for this video as I try to blink away the tears in my eyes, to Chloe's music on Spotify. She became an artist later, and today she, by the way, does therapy. She became a therapist. She just finished her master's degree, as a matter of fact, and lives in Atlanta with a wonderful son-in-law who I would have picked, and her life has turned out great. But she did a lot of art and a lot. She also did a lot of acting. She has a degree in performing arts from SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, which is how she became there. And I tell you all this because I'm going to share her links with you because her art is all full of daddy issues. I mean, if I ever had to imagine, one of the things I love about Chloe is that she is fully able to express her emotions and feelings. And she did it through her art and her plays. She did a one-woman show that is a heartbreaker for me, but will explain everything. And I'm just going to leave the links in the descriptions, and you can go look for yourself if you're the least bit curious. And if you're not curious, you can take my word for it. It's all about me. And Chloe and I, now we talk for hours and hours. In fact, a few days ago, we talked for 2.5 hours on the phone. That's the thing. Chloe and I can have these wonderful discussions, and she disagrees with me about all kinds of things, but we have this really open discussion. But long story short, prison was the last straw for her, and for a couple of years we didn't talk, not during the time and not after. And time heals wounds. So what with Chloe, what I did was respect her distance. I didn't, even though I saw her art, and even though I saw what was going on, and even though I was fully aware of it, and even though her brothers and sisters sister kept me abreast of it, um, I didn't interfere. I didn't interject myself. I figured I sent, let's just say, I made it clear to the other three how much I cared about her and how much I was always checking in, and I waited. And eventually it got to the point where we began talking. But when we began talking, and I think this is an important thing to remember, time heals most wounds, okay? Time heals most wounds. I won't say time heals all wounds because it doesn't, but time heals most wounds. And you got to have the patience to let the time go by. And so I did. But when we started talking, I only talked to her about what she wanted to talk about. And it was really another year after that before he had the real, let it all hang out discussion, okay, where we talked about everything. And it was a really good discussion, but I didn't rush it. In other words, don't press the issue. That's my first bit of advice. And my second bit of advice, which should have been my first, is you got to own the stuff you do too. Okay, maybe it's all about her. Maybe she married somebody you don't like, or he married somebody you don't like, and everything else. But that's a two-way street. And the spouse didn't just start disliking you out of nowhere, and she has her reasons. And clearly, no one's communicating. That's the reason for the estrangement. And you have to allow time to go by. You can't force yourself in. You can't go through the back door. And God only knows, and I'll get to this in just a minute, you don't want to go through the grandchildren. Okay, so in the case of Chloe, I waited for the time for her to come to me. And when she did, I never voiced anything but how much I missed her. Never talked about any hurt feelings, and there are plenty. I never discussed her art with her until a year later when we really had the open discussion. And then it became funny because when she started sharing her feelings, I said, I don't want to cut you off because it's the last thing I want to do. Never cut off someone you're talking to about this. But I said to her, I know what your feelings are. I watched the play and I've listened to all of your music, which by the way is excellent. It's in my playlist. She's a beautiful artist. What a beautiful voice. Oi. Anyway, that was Chloe. Now, Jumping quickly over, because I don't want this video to last forever, about a little over a year ago, my eldest daughter, Lindsay, cut me off. Now, it's in both cases been my daughters, and so that makes me acknowledge that somewhere along the way, my broken relationship with women caused by what happened. Again, you can watch video 1 and 2 if you want to. The dents in my can. I'm kind to women, but I can become incredibly distant, and I have all kinds of dents in the way I relate to women over betrayal issues that you can. And somehow my daughters detected it, because if you think you have secrets from your children, you're kidding yourself. Just like I can speak on the philandering front to any spouse who's watching this now, male or female. If you think your spouse doesn't know, you are deluding yourself. They know at some level. Anyway, and it doesn't serve you well. Come clean is my advice. Never, the hard way and the right way are always the same thing. So anyway, when in dealing with children, they estranged from me at different times. The boys didn't, because I relate well to them, and I don't have issues between my relationship with me and my boys, who are men, by the way. They're with families, like the whole thing. But all 4 of my kids, by the way, are self-supporting. All 4 of my kids are excellent. All 4 of my kids are just great people. And I do take some credit for that, although their mother, Terry, was phenomenal. But we were really great parents. Weirdly enough, we managed to maintain a nuclear family through divorce, which can only be done without recrimination. One day, I'm going to do a video on successful divorce. But right now, I'm going to talk about related to your children. I'm going to stay on topic. So, Lindsay broke off with me for a completely different reason. Now, the reason at the time was she had an event that she was doing for a business that she was starting, and she wanted me to go to the event, and I committed to the event, and then I completely forgot about the event and didn't go. And you would think that wouldn't cause an estrangement, but what it really was the cherry on the whipped cream of the poisonous fudge sundae below that had gone bad. I don't know, what a terrible metaphor. I don't script these things. I have to take a sip of Coke just for a minute. Coke Zero, great product. Anyway, obviously that wasn't the reason she was estranged from me. That was just her setting off the switch from years of her feeling ignored by me. My 2 oldest, the children from the first marriage, and then 2 children from the second marriage. But we had a great blended family. I do discuss that in a prior video, so I'm not going to rehash that now, how we accomplished that. But some things we did right, some things I did right. I did lots wrong, but not everything. You can't, don't be a martyr. Don't start taking blame for everything. That's another piece of life advice that I would give to anybody, particularly our age. Don't rehash. Don't keep blaming yourself. You did what you did, but you have to accept blaming yourself and accepting responsibility are 2 different things. Okay, blaming yourself to me is rehashing, going to rumination, the gateway drug to depression. But, taking responsibility is what you have to do. Otherwise, you can't get past anything. So whatever it is where you contributed, and again, I'm not saying that you're the guilty party. I'm just saying that this cuts both ways. My daughter has definitely got problems in this, and I'm angry about some things. And what I'm most angry about, I'll share with you right now, is she's cut me off from my grandson. And my grandson just turned 16, and I know for a fact he's driving. I know for a fact that her ex-husband, my son-in-law, who I have a great relationship with and could call at any moment, my ex-son-in-law, would happily see me with my grandson. But the problem is that she forbade it. And I resent her for it, but for me to go behind her back and make my grandson into a co-conspirator and tell him to keep secrets from his mother so she doesn't find out that I'm approaching my grandson on the side would be a monumental nuclear bomb that would permanently estrange us forever. Okay, what you don't want to do is turn anybody into a co-conspirator in this sort of thing. That's another big piece of advice. If you do have grandchildren involved or children involved, depending on your age, I said Gen X to boomers, so you might have young 20s children and not kids like I do, where the youngest is 31 and goes up to 47. It's all a little bit different, but just the message here is don't enlist children to help you. Okay, that's incredibly bad. It's going to end up blowing up in everybody's face. You're not that clever. And keeping secrets, making children do it is incredible. If they do it, it points to a break in their own character that you're at least partially responsible for. And if they don't do it and they come clean, they're going to suffer before they do, and you're just going to make their life a misery. Keep the kids and the grandkids out of it. Allow the time to go by. Where I am with my eldest daughter now is I'm allowing time to go by. Sooner or later, she's going to contact me. I know that, okay, again, because time heals all wounds, and the other children keep me abreast, okay? And I know what's going on in her life, and I know and I don't intrude, but I love her, and I don't blame her. I'm mad at her over the grandchild thing, but anger is not the same as rage. I don't, it's just, I'll get over it. And if she called me this afternoon, if by some wonderful miracle she picked up the phone and called me this afternoon, I would never go to a rehash of who. I would simply apologize for my own behavior, help her, I hope, understand that that was not the event that caused the estrangement. It was it was the last straw. It was the final thing that I did because of so many other things in the way that I treated our relationship that we needed to work out. And once you do that, they'll open up. Okay, they'll open up. Now, one more thing. I said the time heals all wounds. And when you talk to someone our age, and by the way, I will be 70 on my next birthday, May 14th. I was born in 1957. So I'm in my 70th year. I always wonder why we say it like I'm 69 when I'm really 70, because I'm in my 70th year. And so we're all actually a year older than we ever say we are. Do you ever think about that? Anyway, regardless, no man is promised tomorrow, and I've had my share of health issues already. And I could wake up dead tomorrow, and I'm completely at peace with that for my own reasons. And I'm not going to get in. Your spiritual path is your own spiritual path, and how you face death is up to you. But what if, the question comes into mind, what if we never reconcile, and what if time runs out? And the answer to that is there is no answer to that. That's just what happens. And she or he will have to deal with that. I keep saying she because of my own estrangements. And that would be a strong incentive for them, I would think, and I'm sure they do, accept that your children are not retarded, okay? And they're going to, every thought you're having, they're having in the other direction, despite all the fights and everything else. And one last piece of advice. Don't make spouses choose sides. If the fight is over, like, for example, you're not speaking to you're speaking to your son, but not your daughter-in-law because, she doesn't want to, and he's coming, or you're supposed to be estranged, but he's talking to you behind your back. Tell him, you go back and support your wife. Your wife comes first. Try to save their marriage, because sooner or later you're going to be gone and they're still going to be married and still have to raise their children. So cut that out. Okay. Don't go behind and don't talk to him on the side or anything. You just tell him, look, be true to your spouse. And when she's ready to talk to us, we're ready to listen. Or I'm ready to listen if you're single or married. I'm pretending that I'm still married, which I'm not. But okay, I think you've gotten as much out of this lesson as I'm going to give, or out of this advice or the sharing or whatever you got. Or maybe the only thing you got was anything you're going through, someone's got worse. I don't know. But then again, I've heard much worse than what I've gone through. Much, much, much worse. Thank God there's no violence or alcoholism or addiction or anything like that going on in our family, or abuse of any kind. Thank God. This is all my own behavior and my rushing back on me and the karma that I have to deal with. We all have our own cross to bear. But whatever yours is, try to face it calmly, and please don't ruminate. I'll say it again. Rumination is the gateway to depression. And then, baby, that's when, right now, you might know that there's light at the other end of the tunnel, but if you get into rumination, you start to think there is no other end of the tunnel. That's the difference between depression and sadness. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to embrace that sadness. It is not okay to ruminate. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. And on a happy note is, let some time go by, they're going to call. And when they do, just fall on your sword like a man or a woman. And, I know women don't fall on their sword, but I don't know what the proper metaphor or analogy is for that. I really don't. I get so confused. Anyway, have a beautiful day. It was wonderful talking to you. Until next time, this is Uncle Herby. Like, subscribe, share, that whole thing that I should be saying, because I'm not even nowhere near 1,000 subscribers to get monetized. So, I would love it if you shared it, because of course, but it's up to you. Peace out. Have a beautiful day. Talk to you next time.